I will be guiding you through this next hour of Dotloop beginner training. Since it's Zoom, if you do have any questions, you can use the chat option, and I have chat pulled up, so I should be able to see your question pop up if you ask anything. And you can also unmute yourself and say, "Hey Sam," if you'd rather do it that way. So either way, we can get those questions answered. I might save some for the end, but I will also pause a few times throughout the webinar if you have any questions. And right now, what you see on your screen is Dotloop.com. So Dotloop is not a software that you're going to have to download to your computer. It's a cloud-based software. You can go to the website and log in from anywhere as long as that device has an internet connection. And you can also download the Dotloop app to your phone or to your tablet if you want to work on the go. And while we're in the webinar today, I'll talk about some of the features that are available on the app so you can decide whether you'd like to download it or not. But it is a nice time saver, so you don't have to carry around your computer all the time. So before we log in, everyone should have received an email letting them know that a Dotloop account or a profile was created for them attached to Whiteline Realty. And through that email, you can either establish a password or log in and reset your password, a few different options to get yourselves logged in there. So if you are having any questions about login, the email address your account is under, please either email Colin or Susie and they can forward it along to me to make sure you're in the right place. Now, again, with Dotloop.com being just a website you're going to go to, Dotloop doesn't really care which browser you use, if you're a Mac person, if you're a PC person, but Dotloop does care that you keep your browser up to date. So whether you use Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, or Firefox, just make sure that you're keeping this up to date because our developers are only developing Dotloop for the latest 2 versions of any browser. Along with browser maintenance comes clearing cookies and cache, and since everybody's on the internet all the time, your browser is trying to save bits of information to make your internet experience more streamlined. But those bits end up clogging up the works, and it can cause Dotloop and a lot of other websites to run kind of clunky or slower. So just some tips there. If you ever feel like Dotloop isn't acting the way it should be, try clearing your cookies and cache, updating your browser, and you should be in good shape. So once you have either established your password or established your login, the next time you come to Dotloop.com, you can click sign in the top right. And to sign into Dotloop, you'll use that email address that you were added with and a password. Here is the link if you have forgotten your password or would just like to reset it. And you will put in your email address, this capture code, and we will send you an email to reset your password. But we do not need to do that today, so we'll go ahead and get signed in. And the first time you log on to Dotloop, you may see something like this where you don't see any loops on your home page. Or it's possible that you see some older loops, more recent loops. The reason you may see loops even though you've never used your Dotloop account is because other agents have shared documents to you, and that creates a loop view here in your own account. You can always archive loops that are older or not necessary anymore, and that just puts them behind the scenes so you're not having to deal with those loops. And once we have some loops here later on, we'll talk about that process.
And real quick before you go, Sam, can you explain what a loop is? Can we start with that definition just real quick?
Absolutely. A loop, think about a loop as like a cloud-based manila folder. And that manila folder, that loop up in the cloud is going to hold your documents, your details, your people, and anything else that comes along with the transaction. And Dotloop will be home to your documents, to your electronic signatures, and to compliance with your office. So ideally, you could log on to Dotloop and complete an entire transaction. While that's not always the case, you can always upload PDFs, download documents out of Dotloop. We realize not everything is going to be like this wonderful paperless situation every single time. So Dotloop is friendly with paper and PDFs. When we think about a loop per closing. So anytime you have a new offer for a buyer, you'll create a loop by clicking on Add a Loop. Anytime you are starting some listing paperwork, you can add a loop. So ideally a loop per property address that you're working with. In order to lay a really nice foundation for when you do go to create a loop, we're just going to start in the top right here in this drop down. And this is a section you should not have to visit more than once or twice in your whole Dotloop experience. Right underneath your name here is your member ID. Should you ever call into Dotloop, we're going to ask for this member ID. It just helps us identify you faster. And then you see your profile. I did go through everyone's accounts to make sure that everyone only has one profile. Sometimes when an existing Dotloop account is added to a brokerage, it creates another profile. And that can get confusing when you are invited into loops and you have to decide where that loop or that transaction is going in which profile. So everybody should just have one profile here in this dropdown. Where we will go next is into the My Account section. And this is where you are going to fill out those details that are always the same. Your name isn't changing, your phone number, your brokerage, whether you are on the list or the buy side. And by filling this out here, this will help autofill your documents, so you're not having to type this in for every single loop or every single document. Everything is pretty straightforward as what it is and what goes where, but worth pointing out, one section here is the tagline. This will appear on any outgoing messages from Dotloop, so I'm sure you have a cooler one than I do in my example here. And then also toward the bottom, you can establish your time zone. And it should be established as central, but please double check so that your time zone and that your signature and initial fields are tracking in the correct time zone. And just click save any changes you make here. Now, when I clicked on my account, I was dropped into account settings, but now I'm going to go into profiles. And there are just a few more details to be filled out here. License numbers, company information can all be filled out here to make sure it autofills into your documents. And now the last part will be notification settings. And everything is checked off by default. And I don't recommend unchecking anything until you have completely finished a few different loops. But we have notifications that are within your account. There will be a little red bell on your loops homepage. You can also set up your email notifications here. And then the third set of notifications will be push notifications. And even if you're not a small screen person, I think the push notifications are worth it to download the app so you can see exactly when your seller signed, pop up right up on your phone instead of having to dig through your email. And those notifications can be managed through the app. And again, we'll click on save just in case we made any changes. So once you've done this, you should not have to visit this page over and over again, but this will be a huge time saver. Take care of this right off the bat, and then you'll be all set to start working within your loops, which is what we're going to create now. And we can figure out this mystery of, what is a loop and what does it hold, and actually see it. So anytime you're in your Dotloop account and you want to get back to this loops home page, you can always click on that smiley face or the Dotloop logo over here. And once we're all set, maybe we have a buyer we started working with or we have a listing we're working on, we can go ahead and create a loop. And there's 4 steps to creating a loop. The first one is naming your loop. So think about it, you just grabbed a blank manila folder off of the shelf and you're writing something up on the tab. In this case, we always want to try to name our loop the property address, but if Bob and Betty we're still working through some details, you could just name the loop Bob and Betty Buyer. You could always rename the loop later to be the property address. So you don't have to wait to create a loop. You can go ahead and get one started and rename it later. I am going to go ahead and just make up a property address. And when you start typing in the property address or the MLS number, you're going to see some suggestions here. And we cover these suggestions in depth in the advanced webinar. But we have the Dotloop MLS, and that means that Aisha, David, and Marcy here, they all logged into Dotloop and made their listing searchable. So that if I did have a buyer interested in Otis Street, I could link to David's loop and create an offer. And this helps prevent this duplicate loop situation that can happen when you're either managing a listing or sending an offer to another Dotloop user. But we'll be on 489 Prairie Street, or Boulevard. And as you get more specific, you may see actual MLSs here that you could link to. Look for your own MLS, obviously, and you can import data from there. Or the last resort, or the last type of source we'll see, is the Google Maps suggestion. So there's the Dotloop MLS, there's the real MLS, and then there is the Google Maps. Google Maps is not the best because it's only going to pull in the property address, and we know there's way more information out there about 489 Prairie Road, but at least we won't have to type the property address over and over if we named this loop from scratch. So I'm at least going to use the Google Maps suggestion to name my loop. And then the next step is applying a loop template. And if offices don't create loop templates, this training is like double in time. So these loop templates allow you to grab a manila folder that already has everything you need off of the shelf instead of a completely empty one. And now you have to go collect all the paperwork that needs to go into this manila folder. So the loop template gives you everything you need to get started and honestly to complete the transaction all the way to the finish line. And you can see your loop templates here separated by transaction type. So you have all the different options that you could possibly need when it comes to creating a loop. And in this situation, I'm just going to do a listing loop, but everything we're going to do in this listing loop can still apply to a purchase loop. We're not doing anything too transaction specific today. We're just getting through the basics of Dotloop. So don't get too caught up in what type of loop we're doing. Now that we have selected our loop template, we have the ability to upload a photo. This is not required. It's just a cover photo for the loop, and I can show you how to add one if you decide not to do it right now. We'll do it later. And then you finish creating your loop here. And now we can click on View Loop. So a quick tour of your loop and everything that you have here to get started. You have the loop name at the top, and you have your document section. So we have our listing documents folder, and there's a couple different colors and options we're seeing here. So we see some of these documents are required to be completed before we submit for review. We also see this MLS input sheet, which is gray. So that is actually what's called a placeholder. And that looks different because it's a document that's not going to originate within Dotloop. It is something that we need to grab from another source and put into this placeholder. And we will do that in just a bit when we're working with our documents. And then you also see some optional documents. So of course, if you do not need certain addendums or certain documents for this listing, you do not have to use these documents that we have here. Everything that's required is marked as required here. Past our documents, you will see a people section and a task list at the bottom. So let's just start with tasks so we're not scrolling up and down the whole time. You can check off tasks as you complete them. You can also head over to the right-hand side and assign due dates to your tasks or assign tasks to a specific person within the loop. And we don't have really anyone in the loop right now, but once we add people, we'll see them listed out here. You have your specific dates and then your more generalized dates here to assign tasks to. And above your tasks, you will see people. And every time we have an opportunity to add or modify people, I will point it out to you. But if you only remember, let's make a list of 3. If you only remember 3 things from this training, please remember to use this people section down here beneath your documents. With a lot of documents in a loop, it can be hard to remember that your people are listed down there, but they are, and there's a lot more that you can do in this people section versus the others that we're going to run into. So let's just lay the groundwork, and then we'll add a seller here to our listing loop. Whenever you create a loop, 2 people will automatically be added: yourself and your admin. Because you filled out all of that great information in your My Account section, you do not need to add yourself, add any details about yourself. You just have to come right over here and click on None, and you're going to give yourself the role that you need in this loop. So in this example, I am going to give myself the role of listing agent. The other person that's added is the admin for White Line Realty. And this admin is not just one person. This is the entire admin staff. So we have Eric, Colin, and Susie here that are considered admins. With this person added, they are added to the team, or with this role added, and that means that they can see the loop just like you can. You do not need to share documents, give access to, invite them to the loop. They're already here and good to go. So when we click on Add Person to add our seller, we do not need to add Colin or Susie or Eric to the loop as well. What that does is it creates multiple loop views for the admins, and it's unnecessary. It's an unnecessary step for you to complete. So the only people we need to add to this loop are the people that are unique to this transaction. Our sellers, any buyers agents, any other third-party service providers that we would need to share documents to. So let's go ahead and add our seller by clicking on Add Person. And to start off with, we are able to add their name, email address, and role. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a name here. And
hey, Sam, while you're... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I was going to ask, is there a way to add like a transaction coordinator?
Yes, there is. So let's like just pivot really quick. If Sally were our transaction coordinator, instead of using seller, we're going to scroll on down. And these are in alphabetical order towards the bottom. And we have a role for transaction coordinator. If we just add Sally by clicking on Add Person, we would have to share each document to her that she would need access to. So a good best practice for someone like a transaction coordinator or a team member, if you're co-listing a property, you can add someone to your team, just like the admin is on your team. And that means they have full access to the loop just like you do. So they're not constantly asking for details and email addresses and documents. They can see it just like you can. So we do have a role for transaction coordinator. It doesn't give any special powers. The role doesn't until you actually check this box that says Add to My Team. While we're on the subject of Add to My Team, you do not want to add your clients to the team, the co-op agent, the lender, or anyone like that. They can deal with the everything is private until shared situation, which is typical of Dotloop. So let's go back up. And I do see a question here. What if I am the transaction coordinator for others? So a few things about being a transaction coordinator. We would want to make sure that I'm just going to say TC has a premium account, because in order to accept a team invitation, you do have to have a premium account to do that. So you could just be added as a team member to the loops that you are the transaction coordinator on, and those will appear in your Dotloop account to work within. And you will receive an email when you are added to the team, so you can go look for that loop. If your client says, hey, I don't have an email address or I'm not interested in e-signing, that's okay. You don't have to shut your computer and go find all the paper. You can still autofill documents with the client's name and role, and then print them out and take them to your client and then scan them back in later. But I'm going to go ahead and add my client's email address so that we can see that client signing experience, and I will click on Add Person. And this Add Person button here, it's not going anywhere. So you can add everybody right now. You can add people as you go. That will always be there. And in this scenario, I'm just going to have one seller. But of course, if we had more, we would go ahead and just keep clicking on Add Person. Now, the reason I love this people section so much is because this is the only place where you can add. And then if you click on the vertical dots, you can also edit this person and remove. And if we forgot to add to my team, that's still an option here. So what have we done so far? We created our loop with our listing loop template. We gave ourselves the role of listing agent. We added our seller. And now we're going to scroll up toward these documents. And this is where it's almost like we're walking up to a room and there's two doors to the room. We just have to decide which one we want to go through. There's not a right one or a wrong one. It's just personal preference here. So if we go into the door on the left, that means we like to go to the View Details page. So right underneath the loop name will be a link to View Details. And if the loop were a human body, the View Details page is the brain. It's holding all of the information about this transaction and will distribute those pieces of information to the documents. So some agents like to visit this page first off and just get everything entered here, and then they're ready to start working within their documents. And that's an absolutely perfect way to do things if you would like to. So scrolling through here, let's just focus on what we can see on our screen right now. If you need to rename the loop, you can click on the loop and it will become editable, and you just hit enter to save that new name. For whatever reason, when you use a Google Maps suggestion, it shows it as a custom name. If you would like the zip code to appear, you can say use property address and then click save. And it looks like my property that I chose maybe doesn't exist, so we'll fix that up in just a minute. You can also upload a photo here if you didn't do this while you were creating the loop. Again, it's not required. Some agents like to see photos on all of their loops. Some would rather not, so no crazy rules there. And now as we're scrolling through, we see another people section. Here we can edit and we can add, but that's about it. But if you're getting your loop started, that's typically everything you need. And then beyond that will be all of the different fields that you can possibly fill in. We have a property address section, financials, contract and offer dates. We have some custom fields here like the referral information, so definitely get this filled out if we are working on a referral. And then you can just see all of the other fields available. And there will be a save at the bottom and at the top. Definitely save as you go, and don't forget to save before you leave this page. But let's fill in that information here. And now if we click save, it's going to update that loop name for me so it actually makes sense and has some information to it. So that's door number 1. That's the View Details page. Maybe you're all about that. Maybe you're not quite sold yet. So let's see what door number 2 has to offer. If you did go through door number 1 and you went through the View Details page, then you're all set to start opening up documents. If you're not about the View Details page, then you just start opening up documents. And we can just click on a document and open it, but I want to be a little more efficient than that. So I'm going to just open up all of my required documents by using the checkboxes to the left. And when you start to check off items, you will see your batch features here. So now I can open all of these, print them, download, fax, share. You can see your options there. So let's go ahead and click open. When you first open up one interactive document or multiple interactive documents, you will see this autofill window. Autofill is best friends with the View Details page. So anything you already filled out in View Details will appear here, and anything we add or edit in this autofill window will backfill to the View Details page. So Dotloop's going to constantly be collecting information so you don't have to keep typing it in. So just going back up to the top, Dotloop already knows that Sally is my seller, but we can click on any one of these roles and still add an additional person to this loop. If something's not correct, we can make that correction here. And I'm just going to fill in these details so you can see the way they will autofill. And go into our documents for us. Okay, and again, when I click autofill, we're saving to View Details and filling out the document. So please do not skip this step. This will be a nice time saver for you. Let Dotloop go to work for us here. And we can see 2 roles have been assigned and 44 fields have been autofilled. So 44 less fields that we have to type into. Anything that did not autofill, maybe it's because I haven't added that person or added those details yet, or there's just something unique that's not going to come from the View Details page. We can just click right into the field and start typing. Just because it doesn't autofill doesn't mean we can't just click and type if we need to. Now, within documents, there is not an autosave. So please, if there's a thunderstorm, if you're at Panera on 30 minutes of free Wi-Fi, don't forget to save as you go. Now, we had our admin training yesterday, and there's a few documents that we're still working on, but anytime you see a field that does not say sign here or seller sign here, you have the power to reassign that field. So for example, I need to sign this new blank CDA. So I'm going to click on this field, come up to the top left, and assign it to myself. So now I can sign there when I'm ready or when this document's completed. And I can do that on any of these documents, but ideally they will autofill or auto-assign the way they need to. And we can see Sally has a place to sign anywhere we need those seller signatures or initials. All right. So while we're looking at this autofilling, I just want to pause for questions. If you have any questions about your documents or autofill, please let me know. Okay, and just in case anyone's typing, let's scroll back up to the top. Anytime you do need to sign a document, whether you assign the field to yourself or it auto-assigned, you can click right on the field and then just click Sign Now. You do not need to send documents to yourself via email or open it up in another account. You sign from your own account and it will remember your drawn signature, or you can type your signature if you want to. And it will automatically date and timestamp here. Going along the top, we have the ability to save, print, or download the documents we have open right now.
What time would you like it?
On interactive documents, you can add additional signatures, initials, and any strike through that you may need. If you place a field, you can resize it.
We'll talk. Let me just give this webinar. This is important.
And you can also resize initials. But the main point here is that when you click and place a signature or initial field, it is automatically assigned to anyone. Please do not leave your fields assigned to anyone. Make sure you directly assign that field to who needs to sign or initial there. If you place a field and you no longer need it, select that field and there will be an X on your toolbar to remove that field. If you're a little too hasty and you closed out of the autofill window, you can always recall that window if you need to. The More dropdown has a lot of great advanced features that we will cover in the advanced webinar. But you have your document history here. You can open up your task list while you have your documents open if you need to. And then last but not least, we have save and share. Now, when you click save and share, it's saying that you would like to share all of the documents that you have open. And this is where, so if that people section is the one thing I want you to remember, this is the second thing. When you click on share, please just take a breath and pause here and take a look at the documents that you are deciding to share to your Sally or to your seller. And if I'm looking at this, I'm going to say, okay, Sally does not need to see the CDA and she does not need to see the commission scale. And I don't have a way to audit what I have selected here. So instead of clicking share from everything we just opened and autofilled, I'm going to go back. Before I forget though, let's go down to that commission scale. I don't know where it is in this list here. Okay, we'll just go back out to our list here. Even though we opened up all of these documents and they all show as not submitted, the commission scale still shows as required. That's because we have not signed this document yet. When I was scrolling through, I didn't quite see it. Everything's loading slow on my end. But when you open up this commission scale, there will be a signature field here. And we put 2 on the document. This one would be if you were the buyer's agent and I'm the listing agent, so this field is assigned to me. So not anything that needs to be sent to your client, but something that you need to sign and acknowledge, and now we have met that requirement on the document. So just a heads up on this commission scale here. Okay, now I'm ready to create a packet of documents to send to my client. And I realize you might not be sending every single document at once, but I do want to send a few along just so you can see what it looks like from their point of view. So we'll grab a few documents here. And instead of clicking open like we did before to autofill, I'm going to go ahead and click share. And again, we're going to pause and take a look at exactly what we have selected to share. And Dotloop has said, okay, well, Sally has some fields assigned to her. I'm assuming you would like to share to her with CanSign permission. And Dotloop gets it right most of the time. But if somebody's selected that you do not want to share to, you can just uncheck their name. Or if Sally's been given a permission that's too high or too low, you can click on the permission and change it. And this is what we're going to talk through next. So there are 4 permissions total. No matter what permission you share with, the recipient will be able to view, print, and download the document. If they complete any one of those actions, it is tracked in the activity log and in the document history. So you'll know exactly when they opened it, if they downloaded it or printed it. I'm going to start with these 2 middle permissions, can sign and can fill and sign. Can sign is perfect for documents that you have filled out We just need our client to sign and initial. Can fill and sign is perfect for those documents that need to be filled out. I believe your seller's disclosure notice is set up to be sent with can sign so that you don't have to send 2 different packets of documents. So we're going to send with can sign just to double check, but they should be able to fill everything out with this permission as well. So once they complete all of the fields that have been assigned to them, with one click, they get a copy of the documents in their email, and the documents are updated in your loop. And then we have our bookends. Our lowest permission is view only. So that really gives the recipient the ability to just view, print, and download, which is great for service providers or anytime you're not really looking for a signature or initial, they just need to have access to the document. And then the highest permission is can edit in private. And this permission should only be used when you're sharing from one agent to another agent. So if I had an offer and I was sharing it to a listing agent, I could share with can edit in private. If that listing agent is not a Dotloop user, they can download the document, print it, and do whatever they normally do to get documents signed. If that listing agent is a Dotloop user, then they're able to give their sellers a place to sign and respond, collect that response, and then send the document back to me without creating a duplicate. I just have a new version of the document here. There are no Dotloop police that are going to enforce the rule that you share to another agent with can edit in private. There are plenty of agents who share with view only. They download PDFs and just send them via email. And you can absolutely do whatever's comfortable for you, but it's not the most efficient way. You're not getting everything you could out of Dotloop. Okay, James and Colin, hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll get this recording to you so you have access to that. Okay, so let's stick with can sign. We can throw in a custom message. Not required, but if you want to give them a heads up on anything, that can be done here while you're sharing. And then the last option is to attach a PDF to email. And this checkbox definitely has a time and place, but it is not required every time you share. So if you think the recipient would appreciate a PDF, go ahead and check the box. But if you think they would be fine with just the electronic version, you can always leave that unchecked. So let's go ahead and click share. And I'm going to leave this agent point of view and move over to being the client. And so Sally has received an email letting her know that she has 4 documents to be reviewed. And when she clicks on this email, she has a link to view all documents. Here's our custom message. Here are the details that were pulled from the My Account section, our tagline, phone number, license number, and brokerage name. And we just need Sally to click on View All Documents. And this is what their point of view will look like. They have a few different options here. They can start scrolling and sign the field. They can click on Start Signing and be taken to their first field. And then the last part will be these 3 dots where they can download or print the blank version of this document. The first field that they click on, we will ask them to adopt their signature, where they can use this signature preview or they can draw their signature. And of course, this is much better on a touchscreen device, but they can make do if they want to draw it no matter what. They can clear it and start over if they want to, but let's go ahead and work with this and we'll adopt and sign. And Dotloop will be automatically date and time stamping anywhere they click to sign. So it's kind of bleeding into this landlord initials here, but it is date and time stamped. We can go through and get this document signed. Now up in the top right, you'll see a button that says I'm done. And if I were to click on I'm done right now, Dotloop would say, well, hold on a minute, Sally, you have a lot of fields you still need to acknowledge. And Sally has the ability to say skip or show me. And here we go on our seller's disclosure. This acts differently than just the can sign because she can make selections, she can type in information, and also sign and initial each page. The I'm done button is perfect for scenarios like this. If Sally is filling out the seller's disclosure and she needs to just take a break, she doesn't have all the information in front of her, whatever's going on, she can click I'm done, and that acts as a save button. And then she can go right back into her email and pick up where she left off. So it definitely has a time and place to be helpful. And again, they can go through and type in, make selections here. We're just going to go through and get this document signed. And now Dotloop is taking me back to any of the fields that I've missed. So I made it all the way down to the bottom of everything, like signature and initial field wise, and Dotloop saying, okay, let's go back up to the top. Normally when all of the fields are completed, this I'm done button will turn into finish signing. And that will tie everything up in a nice bow and send you a copy of what your clients completed, and also send your clients a completed copy. But in this case, we've filled everything out. We've signed everything we need to. So we're going to click I'm done. And now your client will, now your client will be offered a free Dotloop account. Your client never has to establish a password and sign up for an account. This is only if they wanted to be able to download the app or log into Dotloop and see everything that you've shared to them. If they don't sign up for a Dotloop account, it's perfectly fine. And let me just show you. They have already received copies of what they completed in their email. And from your point of view, you have been notified that the documents have been completed, and we can see what's been signed here. So they're offered a Dotloop account, they don't have to take advantage of it. Okay, I do have a question here. If they weren't done, did you say they can click I'm done and then go back? Yes. So if we did just click I'm done, we're gonna go collect some information and fill the document out later. We're gonna go, as the client, we're gonna go back to this original email and view all documents. Another thing that can be done is resharing. So if they deleted that original email, you can click on share for the particular document that needs to be completed, and then click on reshare and more options. And we can just send Sally a notification about that one document. So before we go any further, I just want, Before we go any further, any questions about that client signing experience? I'm just going to pause. Thank you for the bless you. Okay, feel free to keep typing if you're typing. Let's power through this last 10 minutes or so and get ourselves to the finish line here. So a bit of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. We've created our loop, filled out at least our required documents. We auto-filled them, we sent them to our client to sign, and then we could go through and work with any of our other documents here. Now I just want to give you some tools to use in this document section so that you know everything you have available to you. First, let's discuss this placeholder. When you hover over a placeholder, so when we hover over that MLS input sheet, you will see add file to the left. And this means that you can add a file directly into the placeholder. You can add that from your computer. And I'm just going to grab a PDF example here to add in. And you grab that PDF from your computer, And it may take a moment, but all of a sudden you will see now your MLS input sheet is no longer a placeholder. It's actually a document you can click on and a document that can be submitted for review. And that's what we're going to talk about in just a moment, submitting for review. Now your listing documents folder has a ton of documents here, but if you still don't have what you need, if you need another copy of something, every folder will have an add document button. And when you click on add document, you have these 3 different blocks here where you can add from your templates, browse your computer, or add via email. When you click on browse, you can search for any PDF that's saved to your computer and add it to your loop here. And templates will be any of your White Line Realty documents and your Texas or your Trek documents. I don't think I have access to them, but you will in your own account. And you can grab those individual documents that you need. Now, when you're looking at your templates here, you will select the folder and the documents will appear on the right. If it's a larger folder, you can use the search bar to search through that selected folder. It's not going to search through every single folder. And then you can just select those documents and copy them into the loop if you need them. All saying you're not stuck with what comes into the loop template. You can certainly add what you need. So let's go ahead and talk about submit for review. That's going to be this button in the top right. It's also available to be done on the app. Your admins are not notified every single time you have a document signed, uploaded, autofilled, because that would be way too many notifications. So this submit for review will be the first notification that they receive when you're ready for them to review your file. I have been told that we need to submit 48 hours, at least 48 hours before closing. So don't wait until it's the day before or just under 2 days before. Give Susie some time to go through this file and make sure everything's good to go. So once you have your listing documents completed, you will click on Submit for Review. And it looks like we have some required fields here, which I'm still working through some of these details here. I don't have a unit number, so I'm just going to put NA, but I did forget to add in the MLS number. So I'm going to add that in here. If you've already filled this out, this window won't even pop up and we can just click Next. We're going to submit our folder, so it's already selected. You can enter in a helpful note and then go ahead and click Submit for Review. And here's what's going to happen next. Susie's going to receive an email to review your listing on Prairie Road. Once Susie reviews your listing documents, you will receive an email saying whether this folder has been approved or returned. If your folder has been returned, look down the left-hand side here and you will see what document has been approved and which ones have been returned. If you see something that's been returned, glide your eyes over to the right and you will most likely have a note on that document, letting you know that it's a missing signature or something needs to be updated on this document. Should you have a return document, once you have corrected that mistake, added that signature, whatever the reason it was returned was, you are going to submit for review again. But this time, everything that's already been approved stays approved, and Susie is only notified to review the updated documents. So please don't forget to submit for review. It's how you're going to get paid. It's how we're going to keep the ball moving for this loop or for this transaction, and so our brokerage is not missing out on any of those details. Please also do not forget on this new blank CDA, I think I said at the beginning, but it's not going to hurt to say again, this will be my third thing. So people section underneath the documents. We're going to pause before we share documents and take a look at what we're sharing. And we're also going to fill out our referral name, email, and commission if that applies. And submit for review on the app just looks a little bit different. It will be a manila folder in the top right instead of the actual words submit for review. And the app is optimized for a smaller screen, so it may just take some tapping around to get used to it once you are on the app. Okay, 5 minutes left. Just something else I want to acknowledge. And I'm going to add a few documents here to set my scene. Give me just a moment here. Okay, so here's the situation. We have these required documents that we auto-filled, but our client wanted to sign pen to paper or fill them out pen to paper. Now we have uploaded those scanned documents and we have 2 versions of each document here. How do we clean this up? Especially if we're trying to meet a requirement or fulfill a required document, this drag and replace is going to be your best friend, but it's also helpful if you're just trying to clean up your loop. Also, if you have a return document that ended up becoming paper, now it's re-uploaded, we can drag and replace the return document and submit for review again. So here's what we're talking about. We have our completely filled out and signed seller's disclosure, and we are going to drag that on top of our incompleted. We're just pretending that it never got signed within Dotloop. And we're going to drag that over until it says replace and then let go. It's going to ask you if you're sure. We'll go ahead and click yes. We're going to do the same thing with our IABS. Our listing agreement. And our walkthrough document. Oh, there it is. And now we have created a new version, so they show as not submitted, but that's okay. We've updated them. We're going to submit for review. Since they've already been approved or returned, we need to let Susie know we have a new version of this document here. Okay, so this is the need to know or the beginner's part of Dotloop, and I know it's a lot, but you can create a test loop. You can auto-fill these documents and definitely try things out. Rodney asked, is the advanced course available to us? It is, and we will schedule that advanced course probably into the new year, and you will have a custom training just like this one, but with the advanced features available to you. We still have a few minutes, just 3 to be exact. So if you did have any questions or if you wanted to make a comment, feel free to do that. We can make the most out of this training, and then I will get this recording together so you'll have access to go back to it if you need to. And just in case it wasn't very clear, this will now be home to everything. So you do not need to create your documents in one software to upload them here to be signed. You don't have to create documents here and then go get them signed somewhere else. This can be your one-stop shop.
And just an FYI, everybody, this will start January 1st, so you can start, if you have any new contracts, coming up with any new contracts, go ahead and start utilizing this.
For sure. January 1st, fresh start in Dotloop. Okay, well, I can see some people leaving. I don't see any other questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team if you do have any questions. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Happy looping.
Thank you, Sam. Have a good one.
See ya.